At 0600 local time, a Ukrainian operator watches two FP-2 strike drones lift off into the mist and settle to 50 feet above the marsh, heading toward a bridge 95 kilometers south, deep inside occupied territory. What he doesn't know is that the Russians have already worked out the one patch of marshland this strike has to cross, and they're waiting there. 40 kilometers south, a Russian fire group commander presses his headset flat against his ear, listening to something coming through the mist. Behind the two lead drones, 4 more FP-2s spread wide and drop into the weeds, 50 feet over the salt flat, throttled back, the ground blurring past close enough to count the wormwood. The 6 airframes settle into a loose stagger, spaced so no single missile can catch 2 at once. Same airframe, 6 different jobs, each time to hit the bridge in an order mapped out days in advance. Nothing out here rises higher than a fence post, and that emptiness is the whole plan. The one feature of this miserable terrain actually working in Ukraine's favor. Flat and featureless counts as an advantage here. Like discovering your minivan's best selling point is that nobody wants to steal it. Flying this low keeps the package alive against the big radars guarding the Russian air defense hub at Zhizhonkoy, roughly 35 kilometers southeast. But it comes at a cost. It squeezes every drone in the formation into the one narrow lane of flyable ground the marsh allows. The terrain is a maze of shallow salt water and soft mud, with only a handful of firm corridors running the right direction for an approach on the bridge. Any planner staring at the same map lands on the same few routes, and the Russians have known exactly where that lane runs for a long time. Inside a command truck bristling with whip antennas, that same commander keys his radio and starts talking, low and unhurried. He never once looks up at the sky. He doesn't need to. The drones have already told him exactly where they are. What comes through his headset is a signal, faint, steady, arriving from 95 kilometers north, not from the drones themselves, but from the relay aircraft orbiting high above the launch team, the Airborne repeater bouncing their commands forward to an FP-2 they can't see and can't reach directly. That relay just told him precisely where to look. The FP-2 flies on a radio link, and at this range, that link only functions through a relay. A manually flown strike drone 95 kilometers out sits far past the horizon of any ground-based antenna. So Ukraine puts a repeater drone up high in the middle, orbiting where it can see both the operator and the target, passing the signal across the gap. It shrugs off the worst Russian jamming can throw at it, and reaches distances no ground antenna could manage. That reach is exactly why Ukraine flies these relays in the first place. A ground jammer can drown out a direct link in seconds, but a repeater riding high between the trench and the target is far harder to silence. It's what lets a crew in one trench fly a drone all the way to a bridge they'll never actually see. But a transmitting link is also a beacon anyone can find. Russian hunters listen for exactly this kind of signal, get a bearing on it, and pinpoint whoever's underneath it. Think of it as a flashlight waved around in a dark room, wonderful for seeing where you're walking, and the first thing anyone hunting you will aim toward. The same link steering a drone 95 kilometers toward a bridge has just painted the crew for the most dangerous drone hunting unit in the Russian arsenal. Those operators know the trade well, so they keep transmission short and push the drones deeper into the corridor. The package is now committed to the single lane the terrain allows. If one radar catches them in that open stretch, the whole formation burns in the air, with nowhere to dive and nothing to hide behind. And here's what the launch team doesn't know yet. The Russians weren't trying to keep them out of that lane. They'd spent a week making sure the drones would come through it. The trap wasn't drawn on top of the map. It was built into the map itself. First contact comes without warning. A shoulder-fired missile, likely an Igla-type heat seeker, a tube one soldier carries and fires from his shoulder, straight at the lead FP2 on a snapshot from a team hidden somewhere in the reeds. No radar warning, no lock tone, just a smoke trail climbing out of the grass. Basically a bottle rocket with a grudge, short range, no brain, close enough and hot enough that it doesn't need one. It chases heat, locking onto the warmest thing in frame, and at this hour, that's 2 warm engines against a freezing dawn. The drone's auto-evade kicks in the instant it detects the launch and hauls the airframe into a hard climbing break, exactly what the Russians had been counting on. Remember that climb, because it matters in about 10 seconds. A shoulder-fired infrared missile is short-legged but nasty down in the weeds, so the standard escape is to gain altitude fast and break the shot before the seeker settles. The missile's envelope only reaches a few kilometers straight up, so a drone with energy to spare simply climbs out of range and lets it burn out below. Think of it as dodging the first punch by standing bolt upright. Works great against the jab. It also lifts your chin right into position for the hook you never saw coming. That climb beats the shoulder-fired shot cleanly, but it also lifts the FP2 off the deck and into whatever's been sitting silent on either side of the lane. The strike drone, wings nearly 6 meters across, has proven it can stay alive. Now comes the hard part. A missile screams off a launcher on the left flank. Vertical launch, past Mach 2 before the eye can even track it. The FP2 at the top of its climb comes apart in the morning air. A heartbeat later, the right flank fires, an identical shot from the opposite side of the corridor. That was a 9K331 Tor M2, Russia's mobile short-range air defense system, purpose-built to hit drones, cruise missiles, and low-flying jets before they breach the perimeter. 8 missiles ready on the launcher, 4 targets engaged simultaneously, no need to hand off to a separate radar truck. Everything it needs to find, track, and intercept rides on one vehicle, 2 of them dug in on each flank. Each Tor M2 runs about $25 million, roughly $50 million in Russian air defense buried in that marsh. In about 90 seconds, both get shut down by drones that cost a few tens of thousands of dollars apiece. $50 million of radar and missiles, undone by a strike package worth less than the missiles those Tors just fired. But the Tor has 2 weaknesses that matter enormously this morning. First, it's command-guided. Its own radar has to stay lit and steer the missile all the way to the target. The instant it stops transmitting, every missile it has in flight loses guidance and falls out of the sky. Second, and simpler, for all that firepower, the Tor itself is thin-skinned. Picture a home security system, motion sensors, cameras, the works, genuinely hard to sneak past, right up until somebody walks up to the porch and unplugs it. 2 of these now flank the lane. The surviving drones have to break through a crossfire over open marsh with nowhere on the ground left to hide. The fire group commander watches the trap close, exactly the way he drew it up. Drones climbing into the crossfire, the salt flat strobing under missile motor light. He's already pushed the bearing on that Ukrainian uplink up the chain. Behind him, a Rubicon signal team is turning his rough bearing into a hard grid coordinate. Rubicon is Russia's counter-drone targeting network. Signal hunters whose job is finding Ukrainian operators through their transmissions and handing coordinates to the nearest available shooter before the crew can move. The crossfire is real, and it hurts. One FP2 catches a proximity burst and tumbles into a lagoon. An elite drone, gone. The package scatters, shedding airframes across the marsh, and the Russians are certain they've sprung the trap clean. What they haven't clocked yet is what kind of climb they just watched. One drone climbed because the operator panicked. The other climbed because someone on the Ukrainian side wanted those 2 Tors to switch their radars on. The Russians fired on everything that showed itself, exactly as drilled, and did precisely what the Ukrainians needed, because the instant those Tor radars lit up to fire, they quietly stopped being hunters and became targets. Two of the FP2s had been loitering wide of the lane the entire time, hanging back, waiting for one specific thing. They hadn't gone after the launchers, the trucks, or the reed line. They'd been holding their fuel and warheads for the two targets that hadn't shown themselves yet. That was the whole idea. Send them in with the package so they're already airborne, already waiting, the second the Tors light up. Now they have it. Two Tor radar dishes lit up and rotating, broadcasting across the marsh for anyone with the right ears. The pair of FP2s rolls in. That spinning panel on top of the Tor is the one thing they've been hunting. The same rule that painted the Ukrainian launch team minutes earlier has flipped around. A transmitter is a target, and this one couldn't afford to go quiet. The Tor had to turn on every light in the house just to see the intruder, and every light in the house was now telling the intruder exactly which room to walk into. The command guidance trap had closed from both directions at once. While its radar stayed lit and kept steering missiles at the lead drones, the Tor couldn't go dark without dropping those missiles from the sky. It was stuck transmitting, and the two FP2s bored straight in. Both Tors take their hits within the same handful of seconds. The FP2 Firepoint is Ukraine's mid-weight strike drone, fielded in large numbers, 6-meter wingspan, 215 kilograms at launch, 105 kilograms warhead, enough to gut a lightly armored launcher with room to spare. Optional range of 200 kilometers, roughly Los Angeles to San Diego. Two ways to fly it: autonomous on a fixed target, or manual over a radio link for anything that moves. And the detail that mattered most this morning: fly it manually through a relay, and the drone answers to whatever repeater is carrying the signal, not to one fixed antenna in one fixed trench. Costs a fraction of the $25 million target it just erased. What it trades away for that price is a return trip, and the planners built that into the math from day one. A heavy strike warhead against a lightly armored launcher isn't a fair fight. The eastern launcher shatters into spinning metal. Off the western flank, the second erupts where it sits, black smoke punching up over the reeds. Back in the weeds, the surviving FP2 drops low and runs for the bridge. That week-long trap, two of the best short-range air defense systems Russia makes, dug in, camouflaged, waiting, is now two burning vehicles on a salt flat, and the hunters have just become the hunted. But the fire commander had already secured the one thing that mattered most to him. He'd lost two Tors and a trap, yes, but he'd gained something better: the Ukrainian uplink that had been transmitting for minutes. The grid was solved, and he'd already handed it off. A burning launcher can be replaced in a week. A trained drone crew, killed, can't, and that's the moment the entire hunt reversed direction. In a shelter 40 kilometers back, a Rubicon signal officer had been building that grid the whole time, one bearing at a time. To him, the burning launchers were noise. The signal underneath them was the real target, a fixed dish transmitting, sitting on top of a crew. He passed the coordinate and went back to listening. Back at the launch site, a small fixed-wing drone cuts into the sky overhead and settles into a wide orbit. No warhead slung beneath it, no dive, no attack run. The strike drone is still 43 kilometers from the bridge, call it 6 minutes at current speed. The Rubicon FPV is already airborne, inbound on their grid in under 4 minutes, and the recon drone above them has maybe 60 seconds before it builds a targeting fix accurate enough to correct an inbound warhead. Just a slow, patient circle directly over the dugout, holding its turn and watching. Watch that little fixed-wing drone circling above the dugout, completely clean, nothing hanging under its wings. It isn't here to attack the crew, it's here to look at them, and that's somehow worse. Rubicon's signal team has handed this recon drone a bearing, and its job now is to pinpoint the position and correct the strike already inbound behind it. It loiters, watches, and feeds a live picture back to the shooter, adjusting the aim point in real time as the target moves. It's the difference between throwing a punch with your eyes closed and throwing one with a friend standing behind your target, telling you exactly where to aim. After the recon drone fixes the position, an FPV or a Lancet does the rest. The crew in that dugout can't see the full size of the thing that found them. Rubicon's hunters have reportedly wiped out 70% of one Ukrainian brigade's drone crews in a single week. The spotter finds you, points, and keeps pointing while the shooter walks the punch in. Take the spotter's eyes away, and the shooter is throwing blind. Ukraine's own uplink had led that spotter straight overhead, and the team has seconds to do something about the camera circling above their heads. A heartbeat later, an FPV interceptor goes straight up at the orbiting recon drone. A ram, not a shot. If that camera gets a clean fix before they knock it down, the correction reaches the inbound FPV, and the next thing through the dugout roof is a warhead. No warhead on the interceptor, no clever sensor, just a fast little drone aimed bodily at the enemy machine. Like chucking a rock at a bird, except the rock is doing 80 miles per hour, steered through a jittering first-person camera with no second chances if the pilot flinches. The first pass misses clean. A second interceptor goes up right behind it. This one connects, sending the Russian recon drone spinning into the reeds and taking the spotter's eyes with it. Blinding the spotter doesn't erase the grid Rubicon already has, but it wrecks the aim of whatever comes next. The inbound Rubicon FPV now has a stale position and no live correction feeding it. Degraded or not, it still means a warhead aimed at the dugout, even if it lands a few meters off. And worse, the strike drone still isn't anywhere near the bridge. It's on manual control now, which means the team can't stop transmitting, can't run, can't go dark while flying it. The one thing keeping their drone in the air is the exact thing getting them hunted. 8 kilometers from the bridge, the surviving FP2 is on manual control. Ukraine flies it by hand, the pilot's fingers locked on the sticks, sweat sliding down his back in the sealed dugout, threading the run through the low mist still hanging over the marsh. And the run is going wrong. Manual flying at this distance, through mist this thick, with the aim point drifting a meter at a time. On their current line, they're going to miss the bridge by enough to leave it standing. And they can't fix it the easy way, because the easy way means staying exactly where they are. The FPV link demands a live, transmitting terminal, and the Rubicon FPV is inbound on their grid right now. Every second spent on the stick correcting the run is another second sitting still on a position the enemy has already solved. Hold the link and hit the bridge, and very likely get hit in the same minute, or cut the link, survive, and watch the mission fall apart 8 kilometers short of a bridge nobody else is in position to finish. Hold and maybe lose everything, or cut and certainly fail. There's no clean answer in that dugout. So instead of choosing, they do something the fire group commander had spent the whole morning trying to make impossible. That long, exposed, hunted run wasn't a crew improvising an escape. It was the plan. They were always going to fly the dangerous middle stretch and hand the drone off before the bill came due. 50 kilometers away, a second relay drone has been holding a quiet orbit since before the launch, high enough to see that same patch of sky over the bridge. On the call, Team B pushes their relay into the link and picks up the drone's feed. The FP2 flies on without a single stutter. In that same instant, Team A's relay peels out of its orbit and runs for home, and the launch team's antenna folds flat against the truck bed. 2 signal chains, 50 kilometers apart, one waking up, one going dark, and the drone never feels the handoff. Look at what those 2 relays just did. One easing into the link, while the other slips away west. That single swap is the whole reason any of these operators are still alive. The drone answers to whatever relay is carrying its signal, not to one ground station bolted to one trench. So any Ukrainian crew with a repeater positioned in the right piece of sky can pick up the feed and take over flying without the drone ever registering the change. A drone chained to a single ground antenna falls out of the sky the moment that antenna goes quiet. A drone flown through a relay chain just needs a new relay, and it doesn't care which crew is holding the controller. Control simply hops from one team to another, a town away. Ukraine had drilled this handoff cold. A quick check that the inbound crew is friendly and flying the right airframe, and the link passes cleanly from one relay to the next. Picture two people sharing one video game controller mid-match, except the second player is in an entirely different town, and the first player's only job the instant the handoff lands is to get up and run. Team A is dark now and already bugging out. Team B sits cold, unhunted, holding a drone 8 kilometers from that bridge. The Rubicon FPV arrives over the original dugout a moment later and finds the place emptying out. The grid that was supposed to hold a transmitting crew instead holds a folded antenna and a truck already rolling. The hunter has arrived at a place that no longer exists. Antenna down, crew gone into the mist. Ukraine's last defensive shot goes up against the incoming FPV anyway. One chance against a closing target through the haze. The Russian drone closes in near enough that the crew feels the concussion through the floorboards. But close enough to feel isn't the same as close enough to matter. Team B flies the final 8-kilometer clean. Antenna quiet, no one in the world looking for them. No one triangulating their transmissions. No FPV inbound on their position. They walk the FP2 out of the thinning mist and line it up on the open span of the bridge deck, then put its full warhead into the deck. A hole more than a meter across opens in the bridge deck. The two trailing FP2 strikers follow 30 seconds behind the lead drone and crater the roadway in second and third places along the span. 3 holes in a bridge deck isn't a dramatic fireball, but it's exactly what closes a bridge. A truck can't drive across a meter-wide gap, and the column behind it can't drive around one on a 2-lane span over open water. The artery feeding Russia's entire grouping along the Kherson-Crimea axis has just been shut. Everything those units depend on, fuel, shells, parts, fresh troops, now has to find another way across a strait that no longer has a bridge. If breakdowns like this are your thing, hit subscribe. We've got a lot more coming. Drop a comment with what you want to see next, and we'll catch you in the next one.